Part 2. What do we do when we're given functions and the output is not equal to 0? Right? So everything we've seen up to this point, we're trying to solve for x and find the 0 or solution when the function equals 0. But in all of these examples that you'll see here for the rest of the practice, in this output spot, there's not a 0. So how do we get one? Well, it's just one step. X to the second power minus 11x equals 18. We want to move the 18. It's a positive 18, so we're just going to subtract 18 from the right. Once we do that, right, we've made this equation not equal, so now we need to do the same to the left to balance it out. So anything I do to one side, I do to the other. 18 minus 18 is going to give me the 0 that I want. And then you'll notice these three terms, none of them look the same. I have a regular number, an x, and an x to the second power. So I'm going to grab my math tool and just rewrite the equation. X to the second power minus 11x minus 18 equals 0, because that's what's left when I do the inverse operation. You'll kind of notice a pattern here. The only thing that's changing is this number on the end moves to the other side and the sign changes. So I'll show one more example that looks very similar. So if I see the output is negative 15, what's the opposite of negative 15? Positive 15. Anything I do to one side, right, I want to keep the equation the same, so I do the same to the other side. Right, what happens when I do negative 15 plus 15? I cancel, and now I can write a new equation. X to the second power plus 8x, so none of that changes, plus 15 leaves me with 0. So all we're doing is we're creating an equivalent function that just looks slightly different because one number has been moved. If you understand that pattern, you could maybe skip this step here, right? Because you're just going to do it so much. You're just moving one thing to the other side, right? So even though this function here at the end looks a little bit different, right? We know it's quadratic because there's an x, there's a little 2. I'm going to go ahead and try to write that function. So parentheses x minus 3, close, little caret, split the 2. How do I move a positive 10? With a negative 10. If I add negative 10 to both sides, this 10 becomes 0, which is what I want, right? I want an output of 0. So now each of these three functions are in a position where I can solve for the x and figure out what is the 0 or what is the solution, right? I'm just trying to find what is the x value that makes this equation 0. You're going to repeat this type of work for these three new problems over here. And then you're going to add one more layer to this, which is, how do we actually find the solutions? So here's another example. It looks just like the ones we just did. It says, what are the solutions to the following functions? So we're doing this one for you. Move the output and graph the function on the line below. So first thing I want to do is start with a function, f of x equals, right? So I could say y equals, I could change this letter to a g, I could change to an h. I just want to graph the function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to Control C. So I'm going to copy the first part of my equation, right? And then think about what we just did. If this is a negative 56, how do I move it to the other side so that there's 0 in this spot? So negative 56, what's the opposite? Plus 56. And you'll notice it graphs the function. Now, we talked about this number being 0. What that means is the output is 0. Watch what happens to the graph. Let me just move it over here. If I change this, instead of saying f of x, I just say I want my output to be 0. You'll notice it graphs the solutions. It doesn't graph the actual quadratic. These are just two lines showing us where could x be a solution. So it's 7 and an 8. So I can actually write that down, 7 and 8. However, I'm going to change this back because I want to be able to just graph the quadratic function. So you'll notice there's 3 gray dots. Those are 3 of my key features. We just want to note what is the vertex. So there's my vertex right there. So I'll unclick the zeros, right? So 7 and 8 were my zeros. 7.5 and negative 0.25. So that's what you're going to do on the next 4 slides. You're just going to take this equation, move the output, graph it, and then find me the solutions and our vertex. That's it.